everyone's finally seated. That was like, it's supposed to begin if you would.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello? Hello?
All right.
Do you wanna here speak into this?
Hi. Hi.
I know.
Hey, don't close that laptop. Don't close it. Okay.
I'll close it. Okay. Are we on? Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see you all, and a kind of hearty group of interested readers for a hearty, interesting, fascinating writer. I realized a few minutes ago that I wrote this really nice introduction, and I crafted it, and I pulled some like quote material, but I pulled some interview material of Robin's, and I pulled some lines from the books, and I wrote it all out by hand because I don't, it's really meaningful. And then I left it at home. So I'm going to do something, and I'm going to excuse myself by saying this in a way echoes some of Robin Coste Lewis's compositional strategies that we were talking about today, which is you go to your material, you go away from your material, you come back to your material, and that offers you something remarkable, right? That transformation happens. Things crystallize or fall apart, and that's not something to be avoided, but to be embraced. Robin's new book, The Perfect Realization. To the Realization of Perfect Happiness.
No, helplessness.
Helplessness.
Everybody always does that.
Happiness. Oh God. Is a photo and text book. The photographs are easier to describe than the text. The photographs come from an album of family photographs that Robin found under her grandmother's bed 30 years ago, and sat unlooked at, unthought about, and then slowly got looked at and thought about, and then Robin started writing these poems, right, that were kind of about, in the simplest way, you could kind of say about the evolution of her family, right? How they got here from there being New Orleans, but that was only one there. It traces it back, right, in a really and it ends up being about human evolution. It ends up being about astrophysics, right? Like how did these molecules fall into place? And one of the main things I think to understand, and you'll see it better, like it's not discursive. What I'm about to say isn't said in the book. It's done, but the relationship between the image and the text is not a relationship of captioning or illustration, right? And Robin's attempt to break up that, let's call it a hierarchy, right? But of course, sometimes the image is on the top of the hierarchy, and sometimes the caption is on top of the hierarchy. To break that up towards a kind of anti-colonial thinking and making, and that to address this thing that we call the colonial, right? Colonization, not through discourse direct discourse, not through content, but through form. And that's about as sweet and tight a definition as I can tell you about what Robin's doing. Robin, among other things, was the poet laureate of Los Angeles. Pretty dazzling. But teaches at USC, has 2 major books behind her with more to come. And welcome, Robin. We're so happy to have you.
Something happened.
Oh no,
year and a half by choice. I'm going to try to do more of that, fewer readings and more writings. But this place is close to my heart. So when Matthias wrote to me, I was like, of course, didn't I? I was like, of course I'll come. So, no way. A lot of people don't remember because you guys are new. I used to teach here. I taught here for a semester or two. I can't remember how long. So Erica, is everything okay? And I can start? Okay. Anyway, and I was born in Compton and in the 60s. And it was really amazing to like ditch school and come here for dance performances and things like that. Because when I grew up, there were no bookstores in my town. There was no library in my town. There's very little intentional art. There was art everywhere. I was saturated by it in the language, in the dance, and the music, but there were no galleries. So we would drive all the way here, steal somebody's car in our family, and come. So Cowards has a beautiful place in my heart. I am going to begin with the first poem of my first book, Plantation. And then one morning, we woke up embracing on the bare floor of a large cage. To keep you happy, I decorated the bars. Because you had never been hungry, I knew I could tell you the black side of my family owned slaves. I realized that this is perhaps the one reason why I love you, because I told you this and you still wanted to kiss me. We laughed when I said, plantation. Fell into our chairs when I said, cane. There were fingers on the floor and the split bodies of women who'd been torn apart by horses during the Inquisition. You'd said, well, I'll be damned. Every now and then you change from a prancing black buck into a small hyena girl, pigtailed patent leather, eye-spinning gossamer, begging for egg salad and banana pudding. Or just as quickly, you'd become the girl's mother, pulling yourself away from yourself. Because my whole head was covered with a heaving beehive, you thought I didn't notice. I noticed. I cried, honey. And then you were 14, and you had grown this glorious steel cock under your skirt. To brag, you rubbed yourself against me. Then your tongue was inside my mouth, and I wanted to say, please ask me first. But it was your tongue, so who cared suddenly about your poor manners? We had books, and a waterfall was falling in the corner. I didn't tell you. I couldn't remember what that thing was you said to me once. That tender thing you'd said I should never forget. The moment you said it, I forgot it. I wondered if you thought we were lost. We weren't lost. We were lost. And meanwhile, all I could think about were the innumerable ways I would have loved to have eaten you. How being devoured can make one cry. And I hoped you'd liked the fresh, pleasant taste of juiced cane. You pulled my pubic bone toward you. I didn't say it's still broken. I didn't tell you there's still this crack. It was sore, but I stayed silent because you were smiling. You said, the bars look pretty, baby. Then rubbed your hind legs up against me. Thank you. We had a conversation today. I don't often read anymore, and I definitely don't often read from Voyage. But we had a conversation today about poems about sexual abuse. And I was very, very grateful that that question came up. There's a whole history of feminist work, womanist literature that began really in the 60s and 70s, but found its footing where finally women were talking, women most especially. I welcome and hope more people of all genders begin to talk about sexual abuse in their work. But especially girls and women finally began writing about sexual abuse. So I'm thinking of people like, say, Tilly Holson, Grace Paley, Sharon Olds, Toy Derricott, Lucille Clifton, Toni Morrison. That goes on. And it mattered. I don't know if those women really know how many lives they saved by being courageous enough to publish that. And so when it came time for me to publish my first book, there were 2 poems. This one I'm about to read, and another one. This one's in the first part, and the other one's in the second. I think I'm just going to read the first one. I think it proves the point I'm trying to make. And we wrestled back and forth about whether or not I would put any poems about sexual abuse in this book. And then all I could think about is I come from a lineage that saved me of feminist literature. And I know that I know now feminism has some complicated parts of its tree, not the whole tree. I want to remind us all, but some parts of it I know highly problematic. That said, this is a part that I cherish, and I dare anyone on the planet to say it did not change the world. Okay, and it's a part about abuse literature. And so when it came time for me, all I could think about, well, what if there's a 15-year-old person who's being abused or has been abused and reads my book? I want to give them something. The other thing is I really can't stand the way we write about abuse. Again, it's that fetishization, that performance of trauma porn, blah, blah, blah. And what I was really trying to do was give the reader, like, it pisses me off that we talk about anything having to do with pain or oppression in sane ways. Like, we should just be all out in the streets screaming as far as I'm concerned. So I wanted to figure out a way to be that rather than explain once upon a time, blah, 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 blah. Okay, this has an epigraph. The poem is called Verga, which can mean stick and hole. And that has an epigraph from Abishara Aden Mohammed from Kenya in 2000. She was in the Dagaheli Somali refugee camp. And it's from a book called A Camel for the Sun by Fazil Shaikh. Okay, here's the epigraph. Women don't want the men to go into the bush because the women will only be raped, but the men will be killed. I've seen a woman who was caught in the bush by several men. They tied her legs to 2 trees while she was standing. They raped her many times, and before leaving her, they put stones in her vagina. Verga. Before leaving her, they put stones in her vagina. The men will only be raped, but the stones will be killed. The bush caught many men to go into the stones. The stones will be killed by several trees before leaving. The bush tied the men to the trees in their vaginas. Before bush go to trees, they kill many stones. Many men will be caught by the trees in the bush. Several trees will be raped by the bush and killed. Only the caught men will be stoned and bushed by the trees. Several men were caught by the trees before leaving. The men will be killed, but the stones will only be treed. The stones put many trees into the men's killed vaginas. By the bush, the trees were raped only several times. Before leaving, the vaginas were seen standing in the stones. Thank you. And then I'm going to read the last poem of Voyage, and then I'm going to read a long poem. And the last poem from Voyage is called Félicité. Of all 300 species of hummingbirds, only one, the ruby-throated, crossed the Mississippi. Somehow this matters to me. They can hover in midair. They can fly backwards. They fly 500 miles straight through across the Gulf of Mexico without ever landing. Their mouths are hollow, burnished needles, bright, sharp flutes. They sip the nectar of cactus flowers. When Louisiana meant all the land from the Pacific to the Mississippi, a grandmother of mine once owned one of the largest plantations in all the territory. When Louisiana meant Spain, she had been a slave. When Spain sold itself back, she's listed as the sole owner of a vast plantation. A plantation so large, many property lines now form the boundaries of an entire county. Tonight, after 25 years, I realize I've spent my entire life avoiding any situation that might require me to say these words aloud. From that moment, I discovered her rotting inside a molding courthouse, her signature next to the plantation's inventory. I began to babble any words I could think of in 4 different languages, placing them in the most chaotic order possible in order not to say these words. The black side of my family owned slaves. Or her signature, Marie Pani, Femme de couleur libre. Her lover was a famous judge from Sardinia. He took great pleasure in watching Black women hanged inside the square to musical accompaniment. I read this about him once, then tried to see her, brown, sleeping next to him, fucking him on her plantation on top of a pineapple bed, kissing behind his ears, sharing an alligator pear, strolling through her cane. Maybe at some point every hour, a part of me has wondered about her silently, though I did not think so until just now. Perhaps she is the answer to this sensation I've had for years, that of another body hovering inside me, waiting for address. What can history possibly say? Sometimes I feel a pride I cannot defend or explain. Sometimes I smile. Into the barbed nectar of this story, I have stared my whole life. Whenever someone tried to kiss me, I tucked her name under my tongue. If someone tried too long to hold me, I hid her between my legs. If they wanted to touch me there, I'd pull out her name and place the white bone under my pillow, hoping she would return, take it away, leave me a glistening quarter. To her son, Theodore, Marie Pani gave her favorite slave, a girl named Félicité. They were married. One of their children, Heloise, was my grandmother's great-great-grandmother. There is a picture I found of her once, corseted in a studio, standing next to a waist-length pillar which held a verdant fern. But mostly I have wondered, how does one name a slave Happiness? Happiness had a twin sister, Françoise. I don't know what happened to her. Perhaps she is still out there, like us, her throat glistening a silent red. Or perhaps she is the only one who can still cross the river, the only one still flying backwards over the Gulf without landing. Thank you. Thank you. So do you guys remember, those of you who are in the Q&A today, I was trying to remember the person's name of the first photograph of the book. It's Heloise. And I just realized that I ended the book with Heloise and I start this book with her picture and totally was not aware of that. So see what I mean about, to extend the conversation we had today about photography constantly blossoming and revealing and constantly. Okay. So now I'm going to read from my latest book called To the Realization of Perfect Helplessness. We can talk about that title later. And this is a long poem. I think that's all I'll say in terms for time, and we can talk about more during the Q&A. You'll see that it says intimacy. If it goes over, move. Hi, move. Do I need to use a clicker? It's not moving. Maybe if I touch it here. Maybe if I do it manually.
Try to go to the next slide.
I did 3 times. That's why I'm asking you. I did. Oh, now it worked. Okay, thanks. Okay, so the Julie that this is for is Julie Moretu, the painter. And we can talk about that later too. I think they thought at some point that I would come back home. I think I thought so too. Do the tambourines miss us? Signs and marks and nothing with which to apprentice them. Evolution, the migration of imagination. The image just illusion. A profound prehistoric technology of leaving. Minute anchors, something to hold on to, not rational, a private moment, no air. The evolution of human beings making marks, the paintings watching us, an army of black holes advancing. The very, very first person, the very first human being. The ones who crossed over long before the Ice Age, before the last 3 ice ages, before the ones before that, too. Must we see ourselves in the water? Must the water be still? And didn't we know all this was going to happen? Didn't we feel it all those decades ago, standing together, talking on the sidewalk? I remembered you then, not from the past, but from an inkling inside my body that some would later call the future. Some part of me expected you, knew you would arrive, faceless, open, hungry, and how the words felt then in our mouths. All those small-minded Englishes we refused to speak, all the countless blacknesses we could. The body was our archive. Desire was our breastplate. There was a well-known dead saying once, to catch the fish, you dry the sea. You were only 4 then, running along the bottom of the ocean. We were running underwater in the opposite direction. Land is secondary. I was 4 then, too. A history of alienation, perhaps. Perhaps I just needed to take the future off the table. Devotees of Black absence, disciples of the immeasurable. Like the ochre paint you left for me sitting and waiting inside an abalone shell 73,000 years ago. Time a little girl running backwards, wearing a bark dress. What then is a moment? Embodiment, when there is no other word to say but yes. Yes. Intimacy, cell to cell. Do you ever wonder who made the first brick, the first needle, the first spoon? I was in the ark with you. I was the hull. I was the flood, too. Every morning lately, after a night of lucid insomnia, my first thought is always the same. 14 billion years, our galaxy began 14 billion years ago. I just lie there thinking. Then I move slowly forward, millennium by millennium, trying to see everything that has taken place until I arrive to the present moment, me lying in my bed. Lately, I think about all of the other humans now extinct whose DNA spirals inside of our own DNA. Then I remember that we will one day soon be extinct too. 14 billion years. I'm terrified by the idea of my own death, but I scoff at the idea of 4 paltry centuries. Sometimes, instead of going forward, I try to go further back, beyond 14 billion years. I try 15 billion, 16 billion, 60 billion, long before our planet was ever created. Sometimes a small girl in me wonders if all of our universes are a roux, roiling inside a large stone cauldron, inside the warm midnight blue kitchen of the infinite black sorceress, alive inside my cells. Sometimes I can't stop thinking about the fact that before Mao Zedong became a genocidal murderer, he was first a librarian. Quantum entanglement. Something female inside me knows that she is evolutionarily expected to wake up in the middle of the night and stare through the dark and wonder. All the world spinning beneath me, toggling. I have been thinking about you again today, as I do so often think of you, wondering if people can see the sky of our childhood the way we still see the sky whenever we think of each other. Well, not see, but feel. The way every feeling has a trillion eyes. There are days when all I want to do is hold your hand and walk down Wilmington, 2 girls who can feel all the galaxies inside and no one to understand or even fathom that our minds have sprinted far past them, that while they insist on our drawing and redrawing the first 3 letters of the alphabet, that we, like all the other children here, can already see the planet's arc and all her invisible, perfect geometries, of which you and I sitting here now make 3. White space, black stars. I am sharpening my arrows, naming each point after the dead. The only language I have is language. Like the ancient technology a scientist discovers in the interior design of a fossil shell and then replicates it in a factory, a shape and function that makes a whole industry turn. That is pleasure. $40,000 years ago, there wasn't a continent that had not borne our footprint. The Mother, the Daughter, the Holy Spirit. Holy rascal, first teacher, sacred door. The way that women fold out into the universe, the way it folds back into us, the way we disappear and reappear, the way we hide our feathers, the way we swallow our beaks, the way we bite down, the way love says no. The way it sometimes whispers yes. The way a woman steps towards me and her steps pry me open. The way if I look into her, she steps back. The question, always black. The way we open, the way we close too soon, too late, and then reverse it. The way we close too soon and open way, way too late. The old story still alive inside us. The old ways just waiting. A gardenia corsage, a pearl engagement ring, swinging a T-strap to and fro, your arm around me, sitting on a park bench together. That very first time we saw the sea. The way that I can never leave. And still stand and wonder. The night. The day. The way I went to sleep with one face and awoke the next morning with another. The way you walked into our room and said nothing, never mentioned it. The way you still recognize me. The way we rode through that ancient desert that night, hour after hour, the lush and endless darkness. The way our eyes knew to adjust to the pitch black. The ways we began finally to see. The way we held each other's hands. And the kind men who drove us in their Jeep. Your father had died. And the stars. The stars. The way that time keeps knocking on my bedroom door. the way that death lets her in, the way that life pours the tea. Only love can wear the crown. I want to see everything. I want to step inside once again. And there is a reason for great caution when in the company of paragraphs. The house, a parking lot, the tree, a wall, the foundation pickpocketed by God, the self, soot. Turn the ocean on. My body, a constantly ripening orchard, seen only by satellites. And yes, it is possible to be in ecstasy while burning in hell. Just be here with me on this page. Do the tambourines miss us? I am trying to make the gods happy. I am trying to make the dead clap and shout. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Keep it on. Okay. Maybe we can have some light so I can see people if we're going to do a Q&A. Thanks for the warm response, everyone. I didn't hear you guys.
There. More?
Yes, please.
Back left?
I don't care. It's fine. This is fine. I prefer this if that's okay. You'll get used to it in a minute.
Wait, look at this.
I don't like it. I'm sorry. You'll adjust. Your eyes will adjust. We just had a whole conversation about seeing. Now watch the apertures in your pupils adjust. Just give it a minute. I want to be able to see you. If you want me to be able to see you, we have to do this. If you don't, then I'm happy to turn it off. So anyway, hi. Thank you. I'm supposed to answer questions now, and I would love to do that.
Have you any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I was really interested in the combination of photography and like the million of histories embedded within this longer poem. But what I was wondering about was how was it, I guess, looking through these moments in time that were captured in a photograph? Like were they easy to get through, or did they drive up more emotions that like helped lead to your poem or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Wow, my voice is officially gone. It's a great question. So I worked on this project for about 25, 26 years. And I didn't just leave them sitting for years without thinking about them. I actually wrote Voyage, my first book, as a way to cut my teeth and fuck up a lot because I didn't want to mess up this project. I just knew I could not mess this project up, whatever that meant for me. And I didn't know what that meant. And so I wrote Voyage as a way, kind of like I got dogs before I had a kid. I wrote Voyage as a way to practice and go through the whole process of writing a book. But this was the book that was always in my heart. And that I wanted to be my first book, but I knew I was not mature enough in every way. So what was it like to go through the photographs? It was deeply emotional. It's really deeply emotional for me now because several of the people in just this one poem have died, one of whom is my brother. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this first poem. And what I wanted to do was take that emotion that I had about my own private life and my relationships with the figures in the photographs and push that, use that, not push it out of the way, but use it in a way so that when you saw those photographs, use words that would make you be able to walk into the photograph and go, that's my brother, right? That's my grandmother. And it's a really hard thing to pull off when you're talking about Western culture in general, but especially American art history projects, because we're not used to walking into the bodies of Black figures. Right? People all over the world know how to walk into the kind of heroic positioning of, I don't know, Achilles, right? Or Huck Finn, right? We all go, I'm Huck Finn, right? People all over the world, regardless of genders, regardless of races, regardless of classes, if you have what we all have, which we all have is a very fluid imagination, we walk in there. But we very rarely walk into the bodies of other kinds of people, in this case, people of color, and more specifically, Black people. And I wanted to write a text that allowed the reader to do that without bending over in any way. And in fact, with keeping a wall up that says you can go no further than this, but if you have any kind of imagination, you'll be able to enter it anyway, right? So, but what was it like for me over 25 years looking at this photograph? It was a lot. It was a lot. And that's why there are many reasons why it took me so long to do it. The main one being is I just knew I was too immature aesthetically as a writer. But I didn't want to do these photographs as a disservice. And I'm not talking about the history of the people in the photographs. I'm talking about the history of photography and the role that these people played in the history of photography, right? What does it mean to have a Polaroid? Class-wise, it's kind of like the equivalent of video cameras for your generation or iPhones. What does it mean, right, to be able to develop pictures right then and there with just, shake it like a Polaroid, right? What did that mean to millions, if not billions of people in terms of class history and technology and reproducibility? That was so important to me. And then also I wanted the materiality of the images to speak about time and not me. So like the first image where there's those two women, they're smiling, the whole paper's all cracked. I can't tell you how many people said, we have to touch these photographs up. I was like, are you nuts? The cracks are more interesting to me than the two women smiling, right? That the paper shows the history of its circulation. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, you're welcome, no problem. Thank you.
Can you repeat the answer to the question we asked you in class about did the photos come first and then the poems?
Yeah, everybody thinks that I wrote the words for the photographs, and it's the complete opposite. I wrote all the words, all those poems first. There are about 8 or 10 poems in the book, I don't remember. And then then I took the photographs and tried the same way you take, the same way you take an image, whatever, you take a picture of a friend and you send it to a friend and you go, this is John at the picnic, right? I wrote, this is John at the picnic, and then looked for an image that would be an emotional, aesthetic experience of this is John at the picnic. Not John, not the picnic. But what does it feel like to be at a picnic with John? And then find an image that doesn't have John anywhere in it, man anywhere in it, nothing. Nothing that relates. There's one where I say that one where I go, and the stars, and your father had died, we drove through the desert. And the main reason I picked that photograph was that the bottom of it was completely underexposed. So there's just blackness and a few dots. And for me, it's like, that looks like the stars. But then I didn't even realize that it was a father and a son until I'd already put the photograph. Right? And so that your father had died matched perfectly, but I wasn't thinking that. If I had thought about it, I wouldn't have put that photograph there because it was too literal. And I'm really not interested in the literal in that way. Yeah, is that helpful? Okay. I'm trying to be more, answer those questions better. Yes, dear?
I'm really curious about in the book how you formatted the pictures and the poems together. Is it the picture and then the lines associated for each page and separated like that?
Wait, so are you asking me, are those lines supposed to be read with those pictures?
Well,
Mhm.
but I mean, like, how is it printed on the page? Because I haven't seen it.
Literally, how is it printed on the page?
Sorry.
I don't have my book with me.
Sorry.
Just open it up for a few seconds. And while she's looking, next question.
Oh, no, please. But it doesn't take thumbprints, it doesn't take prints, you said. The paper shouldn't show prints.
So what was your question?
I think that your interest in space and
Yay, science.
and placemaking, I think it's something interesting happens with this book because you're engaging with your own history, and I think that like history is extremely, especially when they're pictures of people, those faces and bodies come alive, and I think that like ghosts are kind of make a place in a really
Mhm.
interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering like what's your relationship to ghosts, and do you feel like that that like part of your work is in some ways to like bring them into places?
That's a great question you're asking. I think I'm going to answer it in reverse. You're a ghost to me. I'm a ghost to myself. I don't believe in that demarcation. I'm from Louisiana. The dead are the dead, but they're here at all times. That has gotten really more real to me the more that people die. They talk to me more than I talk to other people. I know I sound cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I really don't care anymore because I'm an old bitch now and I can say what I want and feel what I want and believe what I want, and nobody can change that. Another way of saying that, though, is I am obsessed. I've grown obsessed with science. If I had time, I would stop what I'm doing and I would do a PhD in biology right now. That or astronomy, one of the two. Because the history of the cell is the most fascinating history of all histories. You know, that something crawled out of the ocean however many billion years ago, and now we're sitting here and we're that something, and we keep unfolding and folding and unfolding and folding. I mean, it's just like, hello, what are we even bothering to think about or talk about when there's something that phenomenal? And we are that. It's not even that we literally are that. We're stardust, Joni Mitchell. I keep talking about Joni Mitchell. We're stardust. So for me, with this project, with my grandmother's photographs, oh, sorry, did I do that when I unplugged it? I'm sorry, you guys. For me, with my project with the photographs, oh, fuck it. What bothers me about everything, everything really, but especially about history, is that you can only go back 4 fucking paltry centuries with Black people. Are you fucking kidding me? How dare you? And what's really pissing me off right now is that Black people are doing that. 1619, are you fucking kidding me? Right? I mean, sure, I understand that project, but let me just say this. I was born in 1964, and what we were talking about Black history, and I'm talking about Black American history, is that before slavery, we were monkeys. Literally, there are maps, you can see them. They're horrible. They show human evolution. There's monkeys, right? And then there's Black people, and then there's the white man. That was in our textbooks all my life growing up. It's repulsive. So, and that was what they used to justify slavery. And so I wanted this project, and the reason why we talked about this in the beginning, the reason why I talk about time, deep time, in such ways with these photographs is like, why don't you think that Black people were there too? Just if white people were there, which, we want to get it, don't get me started about, about other human forms, Neanderthals, Denisovans, right? Don't get me started. But who else could possibly have been there? if we weren't. And so I wanted to just push that, like our whole notion of time, as I talk about a lot in interviews about this book, our whole notion of time was colonized. Our whole entire notion of time was colonized. And so to use something as modern as photography, to try to rupture it, you know, I don't know if it works, but I like the project. I like trying. I like trying to have something about 15 billion years, you know, or there's a picture of one of my favorite aunts in blue. It's one of the few color photographs, and she's on a swing. And then the words next to is like, you know, or a magical black sorceress that lives inside a blue kitchen inside my cells. It's like, you know, constantly rupturing even what we think about the body and what's taken place. And so I was going to, okay, I'm talking about long, I'm sorry. But then the other thing is I'm working on a book about the brain and race and the mind and the infinite. And in doing research about that, I've fallen in love with neurons that are 86 billion swirling through your body right now at all times. And you know this whole New Age thing, you know, be careful what you say because this mind is listening, the self is listening, you think it's like some woo-woo thing, but shit's real. It's not even, it's science. Your neurons are listening constantly. And I said to my neurologist, she just came out for a visit, and I said, the neurons are our ancestors, aren't they? And she went, whoa. And I went, but it's true, right? They're not out there. They're right listening, right? And so that's a part of what's going on in that book is me trying to break down the categories of kind of the codification of knowledge. You know, it's like, you know, I when COVID hit, I dug up my mother's entire backyard and planted a whole garden for the whole neighborhood. I don't know how I knew how to do that. I know how to do it because I watched my grandmother. My grandmother was a great gardener. She had a greenhouse in her backyard in South Central. Her house was badass. She grew everything, just fucking amazing. But I've never had a garden that big. I mean, really, the backyard, my mother's backyard is twice the size of this room. I dug the whole thing up and just started planting. My sister's like, how do you know how to do this? I was like, I don't know, but we did it. And then all I just keep telling myself is besides being at my grandmother's knee throughout my whole life, also it's in my body. When I asked my grandmother, I thought I was so smart. I came home from college in the 80s because I read about the depression that hit me, that all my relatives had survived the depression. You guys really start thinking about your family in terms of history instead of yourself only, and your mind will be blown and you'll appreciate the people around you a great deal more. Even if you hate them a great deal more, it'll be a healthier hate. I'm serious though. I remember I came home to my grandmother and said, Graham, you lived during the Depression. She was born in 1908. She was like, you know, looking at me like I'm a fool that I was, laughing. I was like, she's like, of course. I said, well, how did you guys survive? She went, what? I was like, how did you guys survive? She goes, we had a garden. I had a needle. We were never hungry. I never forgot that, right? My neurons were listening. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I'm just trying to blow, melt, dissolve, burn, celebrate the limits that we've placed on ourselves so that I just don't want to waste my life, you guys.
Yeah.
I feel like I still haven't even begun my work. I haven't begun it. And that's probably what my grumpiness is about, the thing we were talking about earlier today about not having enough time. Because it takes time to figure it all out. And all I feel like I just keep doing is vomiting up the disgust I feel about the world rather than getting to the real work. But maybe this is the real work, which is a sad ass situation if that's the case. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yes, please. No, you guys, you don't have to. You guys, I'm happy to be here for the next 2 hours. I don't care. So don't be all sheepish and shit. So just go ahead and ask your question. Oh, thank you. We like Erica. We like them. We like them. We like them. We like them. You guys are amazing. They're taking such good care of me. Okay.
Maybe I don't want to share it. Is it one thing that really struck out at me? Say I am also
You're also what?
an old bitch.
Uh-huh.
So similar kind of age and growing in
You're my age.
yeah. And yeah, growing up in a different country, and the country where my parents were from Ireland and I was from Irish, but where we didn't have many photographs of, and some of my friends and family.
Right.
And all my history,
Right.
my childhood is from that person's
Right.
point of view. But so there were lots of ways, and this is maybe a kind of observation, that there's so many ways in, even though that village is completely different. Through things like the borders.
1000%. Thank you.
That-
Okay, so that's what I was trying to say about the materiality of the photographs. That even if you can't, for whatever reason, imagine that these people might be your relatives, which is, right? Even if you can't do that, no, I love what you're saying. The history of the technology in the photographs, the borders, the type of paper. The borders, I don't know if you guys remember, see that they change through time.
And I have exactly this.
I know you do. I know you do. Absolutely.
Kids outside in probably the cities and shorts, and I thought that could be me. And the whole
Can we turn this off,
conversation with people used to go on summer holidays with, except I never saw any black children. I mean, I lived in a part of certainly in Ireland and in England, it wasn't segregation. It was
Yeah.
just that
Yeah,
at
sure.
that point. in the
Sure, I never
60s,
saw any white children, trust me, y'all were
Exactly,
fucking freaks.
but
when you
it was-
came in our house.
there hadn't been a big migration until later in the 60s. when the-
No, it's not shocking.
But there's a universe out there, there's a point of connection from that. Things like the.
I love your
grandmother's
observation,
photographs.
sure.
Grandmother's photographs have got one kind of picture, or they're in a different kind of.
Right, well, that's also the history of photography, that's what
Yeah,
it did.
yeah.
Like you had people all over the world having the same experience.
And
you
that
know?
interchangeability, which I think is gone as you move into a digital. That's
1000%.
completely gone. So
We lose so much. I love the digitization revolution, I really do. At the same time, it's made us so numb to the kind of power of an image. I curated a show at MoMA last year with the great curator, Oluremi Onabanjo. And there's this whole wall where we found in MoMA as a repository all these photographs, and all it said was somebody wrote me. Me. And they're old, sepias, all that shit. And we did a whole wall, and it was just me. But here's what's interesting. Didn't happen anywhere else in the world. Fascinating. And we can't, we could retroject all of our theories. No matter what, we'll never know. So I really like, we were talking about this at dinner, you guys. I really like the not being able to know.
Yeah.
I really don't appreciate people who go, we know this. It's like, no, we don't. I don't know if it's in this book. You guys, when you start writing more and more books, you don't remember shit. So whatever. I don't remember which book it is in, or maybe it's not even in a book. Is it in a book? I don't know. Anyway, they actually, it's in my Arctic book. Oh, it's in the long poem, The Ark, in the new book. They really thought the Earth was only 3,000 years ago, 3,000 years old, not too long ago. That was science. So I keep telling all my friends who are hardcore scientists, stop talking like that. People who are truly, truly scientists, they're really artists. People who are only pseudoscientists or tremendously insecure and very scared, try to hold on and say, this means this, right? That you always know insecure people by how obsessed they are with facts. Scientific facts, especially. It's like, motherfucker, you're so uncomfortable. Sorry. The floor will be pulled out of you at any moment, right? And the great thing about science is that it's constantly rediscovering itself. And it's beautiful how they go, oh shit, it's like we are this big.
All right.
Wait, not our planet, our entire solar system, our entire galaxy. And the universe is as big as the state of California. So A, get over your fucking self. And B, get some mystery about you. And mystery was really important for me to have that kind of sense of mystery in the photographic book, because we see photographs and we go, this is that. It's like, maybe. Here's another way I got to this. When my grandmother was born in 1908, on her birth certificate, it said colored. At some point, when we became Negroes, it said Negro, right? When she died, it said white. Talk to me about facts, And we all laughed. It's like, they don't even know what Black people look like, first of all. But second of all, there it is. Who gets to decide? And I wanted to explode that. but like so far out in every direction. And to use the kind of history of time and space to do that.
That's what I was going to say. That one thing that also kind of exploded is a line which is white.
Yeah,
And
white space,
with
black stars,
stars.
sure.
That just doesn't,
Yeah.
oh, let's do the negative.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing about that photograph too, which I, again, did not write that for that photograph, is that was two women in that photograph were my two aunts, and they love to pass. They love to pass. They would just come home laughing. Like, these stupid white people don't even know what black people look like. We walked right into the white only situation. They didn't even know. They just come home hysterically laughing all the time. We'd just be like, oh my God. Anyway, I think, are you saying it's time to go?
No, I have a question for you.
The body was our archive.
That line, every time I read it or hear it, it really jumps out. It seems like a very important line in this project, right? Can you talk a little more about bodies and archives?
Sure, it kind of relates to the neuron thing, but also, so that photograph kills me because I had that photograph from maybe 10 years before I realized that those men were queer, right? And you don't notice it until you look at their hands. And so the rest of their bodies are performing this nationalist, like, we're men in the military, yada, yada. And not only that, but we've assimilated and we're representing our country, even though it's segregated at the time, right? And then they're fighting the segregated military. And then you look down and you see their hands. First of all, I don't know if you guys noticed, but one of the brothers' hands, the nails were fantastic. I mean, fantastic. And then you see the way the two of them were hanging on him. I was like, okay, Daddy, yeah. What you got? What you got going on there, right? And so the thing that's also funny is I remember, so the guy in the middle is named Floyd, and I only know this from the photographs because there's another photograph where he's with his wife and his newborn, and he's, in my opinion, I am projecting, I know that I'm retrojecting, but to me it looks like he's hiding his fingernails. And he had just come back from the war. And I remember calling my mom, and thank God I asked these questions before everybody died. Mom, look at your Grammy's photographs. Who's Floyd? And she goes, Floyd? I said, yeah, he was in the military. She goes, oh, he was one of Grandma's best friends from New Orleans. I said, Floyd was gay. And my mother said, Floyd was not gay, Robin. I said, Floyd was gay. Gay, gay, gay. And she was like, Robin, that's impossible. He was married, he had a kid. And I was like, what does that have to do with him? Most of my married friends are gay. Some of them know it, some of them don't. Come on. But this was before the internet. So I said, I will bring something home for you for Christmas and then we'll have this conversation. She was like, okay. So months pass, I go home and I just go like this to her with the photograph. She goes, yeah, that's Floyd. I said, yeah, that's Floyd. I said, look again. She goes, what? And I'm like, look. She said, what? I said, look at their hands. And she goes like this. I said, told you Floyd was gay. And she started laughing. I don't know why I'm telling that story, but it's related to the body as the archive for me. I mean, I just think it's an obvious thing. It is, just for the reasons we just talked about. Our cells have been replicating for billions of years. The same cell. It's like, people talk about God as the best drag queen. The cell. I mean, the cell's like, I'm going to be you. I'm going to be you. I'm going to be you. I'm going to get together and do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a tree. I'm going to be nature. I'm going to be the sky. I'm going to be everything. The cell is the baddest motherfucker around. It is. I'm not joking, you guys. You jump into biology, you'll never come out. It's so beautiful. And then, right now I'm reading about the human brain. And in terms of that cellular history, this is the most magical of all. And it's not like some kind of, I don't know, chauvinism against the human species or pro-human species. I give a fuck less. I hate human beings. That's not where I'm coming from. But in terms of evolution, it's crazy what's happening. It's crazy what's happening right now in this room with all of our neurons and cells spinning around. It's crazy what's happening with language right now, with your brain. It's crazy. Like when you really slow it all the way down, you're like, it's miraculous. It's miraculous. And I just think, we need to brush some of that miraculousness towards Black bodies. I mean, damn. Really? Really? After everything Black people went through, you can't just fucking put a Black body in space that isn't an astronaut? Are you fucking crazy? Come on. How many hundreds of thousands of years did it take us to be here right now? And you can't include Black people in that history? Fuck you. No, seriously. And then on top of it, my colleagues in this country are like, we only been here 4 centuries, you know? I'm like, oh shit. What do? That's why I don't hang out with writers. We were talking today about who do we hang out with. And I'm like, I can't. Because I can't keep having these dumbass conversations. I can't. I'd rather look at a painting that doesn't have people in it. Seriously. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Yes. Oh, wait, this is being recorded. I just talked about all kinds of people in that. That's why I was like, don't record it. I don't care. Fuck y'all. I'm teasing. I'm teasing for those people if you're listening in. I don't think they are. Okay. Yes, darling.
You spoke earlier about how you put a lot of value in the idea that stanza means room, and that your hope for your writing is that you're inviting somebody into a room and they don't leave until you're ready for them to leave.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken, the word for a cell comes from the word.
That's
room.
right,
It's like a
baby.
room. I was wondering if those two ideas are related in your work.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
how.
Thank you. The same. But it's also about intimacy, right? You know, it's like you say you want to read something, so read it. Right? Read it again and again. I mean, Matisse and I come from a generation, I guess you do too, where it's nothing to read the same book 10 times over your life. Nothing at all. Not even a big deal. Not even, it's just, and also the book changes. It changes with you, you know? And now, you know, everybody has ADHD. There's nothing wrong with that. We all do. Because our phones have taught us, have deconditioned our mental processes so that we can't stay still. Not even with ourselves, speaking of the body as arc. And so for me, I try to find ways to make the reader stop. And then one day we woke up and we were on the bare floor of a whatever large cage. Where are you gonna go? And then break the line, and then break the stanza. So even if it's just like, you don't even notice it, right? I have made you stop for half of a nanosecond before you get to the next line of the next couplet. I do shit like that. I know exactly what I'm doing all the time. I do. You guys want to hear
Complete control.
Not complete control, not at all. But I'm in control of some shit. Yeah. There's a great poem by Rita Dove called The Regency Fete. For those of you guys who are in the MFA program, I highly recommend it as a master class in enjambment. There are books on enjambment, there are articles on enjambment, blah, blah. Read that poem and just watch your line breaks and get your life. Seriously, because it's like, oh shit. I'll just give you an example. It's in her book, Sonata Melodica, which a lot of people didn't read and didn't like. But she is taking on the persona of the Regency, the Regent in Edwardian England, Victorian, Edwardian, and he has a party, and he has this magnificent party. It's a historical fact. And anyway, it's a manifesto to life and beauty, this poem, but it's amazing to see Rita Dove step into this body from way over here, and then writes this manifesto for pleasure, but in the body of a colonizer. It's fucking amazing. And then this is how she does it. I have always believed that love is, cute line, right? Cut and overflowing. An abundance one needs, cut, to be rid of. To pour into another, cut. That other can be, and you're constantly like, yeah, love is. And you're like, ugh. You know, it's that existential. She does it throughout the whole poem until the very end. Then she does some fancy footwork with iams at the end. It's really amazing. So, you know, you figure out ways. You just figure out ways to, you know, I tell my students all the time, why won't you guys pay attention to punctuation? Why the fuck are you just giving up all that power? Punctuation is an aesthetic tool. Stop thinking. Sure, it was a grammatical weapon when we were younger, without doubt. Without doubt, they used it against us, right? But now you're a fucking writer, so write. You have a comma, don't just fucking throw it all around like unconsciously. Use it. Semicolon, period, line break. Use it. Make your reader do exactly what you want them to do. And if you don't care about what they do, then go loosey-goosey too. I do it all the time. I have a poem that's like, you don't even know which line is what, because it's a different project. But if you want your reader to read the way you hear that text, you gotta employ a lot of tools. And sometimes that tool looks like a period. Sometimes it looks like a semicolon, sometimes it looks like a in dash, sometimes it looks like space, sometimes it looks like one word on the page. But don't give up your power as a writer. Like, in fact, I wanted to tell y'all, I'm about to read y'all, okay? Today, when I first got in, you guys were going around the room, I do so I'm a poet, I do so you guys sounded like this. My name is Jane and I'm a poet, I guess. Nah, bitch, my name is Jane, I write poetry. In your body, the body is the archive. Or if you're not sure, that's okay too. My name is Jane, I'm not really sure what I do, but I like language as an aesthetic tool. Get in your body, claim who you are, know that, say that, feel it. There's nothing to be like, I think I'm a poet, are you kidding? Are you joking? You're fucking the MFA at Cal Arts, bitch, you better be a poet. No, I'm serious, did you guys hear yourselves today? I was like, what's all this sheepishness about? Are you a poet or aren't you? Are you a writer, aren't you? Or are you whatever? Or my name is Robin, I'm completely confused. I actually don't know if I'm a poet, but I write poetry. And sometimes that's good for me. Right? Whatever it is you're feeling, you don't have to be sure. I'm just saying, be in your bodies, you guys. I saw you shrinking from your bodies today. That's what it'd be like, stand up. I was gonna say, can I make them all stand up and do that over? Just to see if standing up would help. It makes a difference. So there's a long ass way of saying, while we're experimenting and all this shit on the page, be in your body and be in your language. Be in it. And if you're gonna drop a fucking mic, break that line.
All right.
If you like something you wrote, what? Walk away from it.
All right.
So that the reader gets to go, shit. Nicole Sidley, great poet, said, I want to write the kind of poem I say damn and push away from the desk when I write it. Right? Nicole's badass. I don't try to do that. But I do try to write the kind of poem that will be in conversation and will say something real that can help you guys get to wherever the fuck you're getting to. That's the kind of poems I read. Zimborska, that's my boo. I mean, if it's Lala Zimborska, all week long. Rilke, my boo, right? All kinds of people that I'm just like, help me, goddamn, this shit is hard. Life is hard. So don't put some shit on the page that's not gonna be, you don't feel, you're just fucking around. Don't fuck around, y'all. Go ahead. This program's gonna be over before you know it. I'm sorry, I switched to professor mode.
No, you go.
I tell my students all the time, it's like, let me just get this right. You have 24 eyes on your poems. You will never have it again. So whatever the fuck Becky's saying about your poem, just shut the fuck up and listen. Because Becky might say something really interesting. And you save it for 20 years later when you're trying to rewrite that shitty ass poem. Becky might be the one who gave you the juice. No, but I'm serious, you guys. The privilege of being in an MFA program in the world, especially at this time. Take this shit seriously. I can't stand students that don't take it seriously. It makes me crazy. It's like, what? What? Take it seriously. So yes, think hard about what you're doing. In every word, every comma. David St. John, great poet, my boo, my boss, right? David called me a couple of years ago and said, what are you doing? I said, I've been moving the same damn comma back and forth all damn day. Yes. And he was like, at least the squirrels are entertained. Okay, so yeah. Toni Morrison said this thing in her Nobel lecture. It's an amazing, amazing speech. But at the end, these kids had been taunting this old woman. And she was blind. And they brought her a bird and they were like, is it dead or is it alive? And she couldn't see, so they were being assholes. Yeah. But whatever. So then she gives this whole discourse about if it's alive. Then she gives this whole discourse about if it's dead. And both of those things are brilliant. But then she ends with saying, Look, basically, I don't know if it's alive or dead, but what I do know is that it's in your hands. So the poems are in your hands, you guys. And the question is, what are you gonna do with it? It's just such a tremendous privilege to be at a place where this motherfucker would be like, what did you write? Are you joking? Do you know who this guy is? Do you know what an honor it is to get to work with him? You know, like, be very serious. I'm gonna tell you one more story, now shut up. When I was at the MFA program at NYU, oh my God, I got to study with so many people. And anyway, I can't believe it. I wanted to like shoot myself every day because I was in Yusef Komiaka's workshop. It was tremendously amazing. First day, he says, okay, next week bring a poem back, a love poem, can't use the word love. You know what the fuck happened. This crazy ass student who just is like, brings a poem back that's titled Love, and there's love in the poem. And I'm looking at him like, have you lost your fucking mind? Do you know how many people would kill to be in this room? And you just couldn't be bothered to do what motherfucking Yusef Komiaka asked you to do? You couldn't be bothered. And then I was mad, so of course when it got to my time, I was like, I just don't understand why you didn't follow the assignment.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels disrespectful to our professor, like, you know? And he goes, well, it's what the poem wanted to be. And I said, that's bullshit. And you know that there's like probably, I don't know, about 10,000 people who would give their left arm to be in this room studying with this man, and I don't want to be in a class with you. Right? Take it seriously, you guys. Take this seriously. I mean, okay. Okay.
Done.
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
How about we adjourn? We're gonna be next door, not outside today, and Robin will be here, and I encourage you all to.
Sorry for being so verbose.
Thank you again. One more.
Thank you. Now I can drink.
You're not right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.